We are at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to the Big Splash. We have a panel of faculty today to showcase how Summer 2 went in Canvas. And our speakers today are Dr. Nikki Ayres. She is a senior lecturer in the Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics. Dr. Deidra D Davis, who's an instructional assistant professor in the Department of Landscape Architecture and Urban Planning, as well as Dr. David Sparks, who's a professor and associate department head in the Department of Geography and Geophysics, all from Texas A&M. The session will be moderated by Dr. Heather Wilkinson, who's professor and associate dean of faculties. Heather's also a member of our LMS advisory committee as we transition to Canvas, and just an incredible advocate of teaching and learning in all fronts. So we're excited to have her lead this session. We're also joined by Kevin Lawanto, who's an instructional designer in the Office for Academic Innovation. He's contributed to the training sessions and resources we provided, and upon request of the panelists, he's joining us today. I think he's helped some of these faculty out over the last several weeks. So in terms of how we'll lead this session, it'll be pretty informal. Heather has a series of questions for each of our Summer 2 faculty panelists. And then after we hear from the panelists, we'll have some time for Q&A. The questions are coming in, so keep sending them our way. And Heather will also facilitate that Q&A session. The session's recorded, and we will post a link to the recording in the next week on our Office for Academic Innovation YouTube channel. As we've been doing all day, we've got the Twitter hashtag TAMU Big Splash, as well as academic innovation at tamu.edu, where you can send questions. And if we don't get to your questions today, we'll make sure we get back to you in the next couple of days. So with that, Heather, take it away.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Howdy, everybody. So I thought we'd start today by each of you introducing yourselves, and it would be nice to know what course you taught this summer and what types of learning activities, assessments, tools, and the degree to which it was synchronous or asynchronous during this and what I assume they were 5-week courses. So could you each kind of give us an idea of who you are and what your course entailed this summer before we get started with the questions? Awesome. I'll start with, how about you, Deirdre? You're on my left.
All right, great. Thank you for that, and good morning, everyone. Again, I am Deidra Davis. I currently teach, I'm an instructional assistant professor in the Department of Landscape Architecture and Urban Planning. And I've taught both Summer 1 and Summer 2. And in Summer 2, I taught Building Better Cities, which is URPN 202. And I had the opportunity to use Canvas and opt into that during this pre-pilot phase, and I chose to do so. And I chose to participate for 2 reasons. One being, since we are transitioning into this new LMS, it gave me the opportunity to kind of be ahead of the game in a way. And also during this Summer 2 session, I thought it would be good for those students, especially the ones who are continuing on, who are in their freshman, sophomore, junior year, to kind of get their feet wet a little bit in it during the summer sessions, being that they may not have that heavier course load that they do in the fall and spring. So I thought that was a great opportunity for us both as well. And the tools that I use, being that the course that I taught, Building Better Cities, for this Summer 2, was a writing intensive course. And because in this course, along with writing, we discuss a lot. I use the Turn It In function in Canvas, as well as the discussion. I use that, and we can talk about that in a little bit. The class was both synchronous and asynchronous as well. I taught a little bit live, but for the most part, it was best that I was able to record some lectures and allow the students to view them in a certain time frame. Given that this was new to us all and the climate of our world today, student schedules are all over the place, so it was best that I uploaded information and allowed them to view it in a way at their leisure, but within the time. Yeah.
Within a 5-week course. Yeah. Thank you, Deirdre. So how about you, David? You're muted.
Hi, good morning. David Sparks. I'm from Geology and Geophysics. And I taught a course in summer 2 called Planet Quest. This is a relatively new course I started to develop last fall. It's a completely asynchronous, somewhat work at your own pace, module-based course on using numerical models to understand how planets get made and how they evolve and how they might or might not be habitable. So it's based kind of around spreadsheets. So models that are developed in spreadsheets, and students download them, work with them, fill them out, send them back, and a lot of recorded videos that I did so to give sort of lectures and then text for the background. So it's a course designed for at kind of a relatively lower level. So my idea is that you'd be able to take it at coming in with really very little math background, just sort of pre-calculus. And I decided to go with Canvas because it seemed like this is a course that's designed to kind of have each student take a unique path through, and they're supposed to get individual data sets. And I thought for the long run, this would be the way to go. I wanted to develop it. I'm teaching it again in the fall semester with a bigger enrollment and hopefully a little bit more streamlined.
So what tools did you use within?
It was mostly videos and downloaded videos. I didn't use any quizzes this time. I couldn't quite get that ready. I was going to have embedded quizzes. It was mostly work on your own, but towards the end I did do some group assignments as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Nikki.
I'm Nikki Ayres from biochemistry, and I taught a junior senior level laboratory class, which was always interesting online. I wanted to go to Canvas because I always figure that I can try things on my small summer class of 45 compared to 240 in the fall, which would be, if you're going to mess it up, do it in front of fewer people is my philosophy. I really like Canvas. I thought it went really well. I would do it again. I ended up setting up that I did Zoom lectures, which would have been the lecture that they would have heard normally in front of the classroom. And then we did demonstrations, so they actually saw the lab work, but we recorded that too, so I had a TA who was good at video editing, so we could give them the optimal view as if they were really doing it. And they also had sections of reading to do for the lab manual. I did the quizzes and the final exam all online, which worked great for the most part. So it did go pretty smoothly. The students were learning, as was I, and sometimes I had a hard time keeping ahead of them, being only 5 weeks, but it did generally work out pretty well, and the students were pretty happy with it.
Excellent, thank you. So we really captured a big diversity of use of synchronous versus asynchronous and whatnot with all of you. So can we talk a bit next about what kind of training you used? And everyone should keep in mind this was summer session, and so it was kind of a just-in-time situation anyway. But could you kind of speak to how and when you sought out training in order to be able to use the learning management or to use Canvas? And we'll just popcorn this. So if you have something to say, tell me, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump right in because this was very interesting to me. Again, as I stated earlier, I kind of like to be pre-prepared. So I jumped on the opportunity to try to use this. But again, the time limit to truly, navigate all the tools within Canvas, I really didn't have wanting to get the platform up for the students. So I was pretty much learning as the students were as well. But one thing that I will consistently say is I had many tickets open through the help desk because I called in often. And so they may not have seen my face, but they heard my voice many times So I had several tickets open, and I had to put any pride that I may have had aside. So if it was anything that I thought was crazy simple, but I couldn't totally find it or didn't have the true time to navigate through all the PowerPoints and listen to everything that was up on the training and support, I just called. And I called several times, and I must say that they were extremely helpful to open up a ticket, and some were able to walk me through things right over the phone. And I did that a lot at the beginning of this. However, through these 5 weeks, there was one, I want to say a big issue, but I couldn't, there was something I couldn't do or something that wasn't working right for me and turn it in. And again, I didn't really navigate all of the training and support tools that were here, but during that same period that I was already having a slight issue and wondering why I couldn't see some students' work, they were also having a live turn it in training section going on, I think that following day or something like that. It was around the same time that I was having issues. So I went ahead and signed up and jumped right in that. And literally, as the live session was going on, I was also on another computer, still trying to play with, my turn it in. And through that session, actually found my problem. And I jumped out of that section quickly so I can get back on to what I was doing. So between the help desk, the people at the help desk helped me out tremendously. And again, I had to push away any pride and really just ask them questions that may have seemed like the simplest thing, but I just needed questions quickly, and they were on it. And then the live Zoom, the live sessions that they had, even though it was literally throughout the time that my course was underway, but it worked out perfectly for me, and I can get the information I need and get back to working on my class.
Excellent, excellent. So when you say the help desk, there is an email that's aihelp@tamu.edu, and there's also a phone number associated with the help desk and it's 458-3417. But that's all available to you. You don't have to remember that. You need to remember lms.tamu.edu, and that's the website. And there's a little, one of the tabs is training and support. And so on that page, you also mentioned the videos you could have gone through when you had a question. And so there's a bunch of different Canvas associated videos there. And then also the schedule for the live learning that you discussed there as well. And so, and there's office hours most days as well. So just knowing that that's all there and there's different ways to do it, it sounds like you really navigated well using those resources. Excellent, excellent. David, did you have seek support in your course?
I was mostly going from the training course Growing with Canvas. So I started that, and I found that very helpful in that not only did it explain things well, but it also took you through a course. So you kind of had the student experience of going through a course module by module and participating in all the various tools. That said, I only got right up to about grading, and then I had to stop because it was like time to actually make my course and start teaching it. So there's probably some things that I wish that I had learned from the rest of that, but I'll get back to that next week, I guess.
Excellent, excellent. So Growing with Canvas is a course that you can take at your own pace if you have time to do so. And I've experienced the same thing David's experienced, where at some point you just have to start building, so you might not have all the time to do it. But I'm really excited that it's there, that I can keep going back to it and learning more and fleshing things out. How about you, Nikki? Did you have particular learning that you did in order to use it? Or resources?
I did some of the live and some of the recorded, which there weren't as many as I would have liked, but that grew as the semester went along. I did some Googling and found help documents from other universities, which was occasionally frustrating because we wouldn't have that ability yet. And then Kevin in office hours immediately had all the answers. So that really helped a ton.
Great, thank you. That's a perfect segue. I was going to say to Kevin, could you kind of characterize for us what the fall will look like with respect to live versus available recorded trainings, and how that training and support website may or may not be changing, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, Hi, everyone. Yeah, it will definitely, as we mentioned to the summer 2 faculty who's using Canvas, that they're all in the pre-pilot group of Canvas. So we appreciate all of your understanding as we all learn how to use Canvas. As you might know that Canvas, the LMS between different universities are custom based. So if you see how to the step-by-step guide from other universities might not be applied to our own instance. But we're working closely with the faculty of learning more on how they're planning to use Canvas and turn on and working with the leadership team or with the admin to turn on some of those features. So we are giving out the survey. We keep asking faculty during office hours. We had probably about 300 plus faculty join the training so far since we turned on Canvas on June 8th. And about half of those faculty came to office hours. And we're learning from them, and also we're planning to always keep our on-demand video training updated, since it's not just we're trying to turn on some of the features that is not available, but also Canvas make updates to some of those features too. So we're also trying to learn some of those updates that they're trying to make or they're trying to implement in the future. So yeah, those LMS websites, so like what Dr. Wilkinson said, your best information that you can get about those changes or with our training opportunities, resources, it's going to be on the lms.tamu.edu, and that website is it's changing weekly, daily, as soon as we hear back from the leadership team or the faculty of what they need, and we appreciate your understanding of seeing those changes and also growing with us through as we learn more about Canvas.
Yeah.
Hey.
Can
Thank you, Kevin. Sure, go ahead, Deidra.
So I'm glad, Kevin, that you mentioned that, and Nikki, you as well, because during this process, I was actually casually on the phone with a colleague, and we were talking while I was actually trying to figure out some things in Canvas. And although she's here at the university, her experience, she had an experience with Canvas at another, so she was trying to walk me through setting up a new tab. That was what I was trying to do on that side. And we couldn't figure it out. And then once I called help desk, that was one of the things that there are a number of things that other universities have already set up in their Canvas system that we don't have access to right now. So in a way, going out to other systems or Nikki, it's great that you navigated other universities, but make sure you understand that we haven't opened up everything that we may see out there that other universities are fully using through Canvas. So that threw me off a bit, because this other colleague said, you should be able to do that in Canvas. But I wasn't able to, and that's just because those things aren't open to us yet. We haven't opened those. So that's why it is truly important that we as faculty really utilize the LMS at tamu.edu, that we have set up right now, and know that they're continually updated. So hopefully I'll be able to add some tabs to my own class in the future.
So this is a really important through line, right? Mm-hmm. Is that when we teach, we have to manage expectations, and as we learn, we have to manage our expectations, and as we grow Canvas here at A&M, because you can't just, it turns out it's not, just like you bought a floppy disk and you install it and then we can all use it. It has to be built, and it takes a long time to implement something that's this sophisticated. And so it's going to be changing over time, and then LMSs themselves change over time as they get updated. And so we really want to be careful about managing expectations that we're all going to grow with this, and I think that's why it was named so appropriately, Growing with Canvas. And so that's a great point to make. Thank you so much, Deidra. So the next thing I'd like to start talking about is, based on your experience with students, kind of their experience, and I'm incorporating some of the questions we've gotten, and I hope you can hear yourself in these questions that I asked them. So I'd like each of you to speak to the feedback you may have gotten from students, and where appropriate, I'd like it if you were to address the ways you found most effective for creating a community among the learners in your course, if that's appropriate to the kind of course you had. So who would like to go first?
I'll take it away.
Okay.
Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the class that I taught this summer too was a writing intensive course, and being just the nature of the classes that I teach as well, I require a lot of dialogue back and forth between myself and the students. So there was a lot of discussion that if we were really face to face that we would have been having. So that was one of the reasons that I truly chose to heavily incorporate the discussion function within, tool within Canvas, and it was pretty neat, and I was extremely surprised and excited about the discussions that went forth. One of the things that I was able to do using that discussion tool was to allow the students to view videos and to answer to a number of question prompts that I put up. But I also had the option that they could not see any other post until they actually put a post up or wrote something. And they could not adjust their post once it was given out to the entire class, being that I wanted them to be concrete in what they thought and what they would put out there for that initial piece, and not just read everyone else's and change their thoughts, but I wanted them to add to it. And that helped, because when students would write something in the discussion and then it would open up the full discussion and then they would see how other students responded, they were able to kind of go back and reflect and add to their initial post. And then that just started a chain reaction of students commenting on each other's posts. You know, I like what you say here, but had to do this. And students were just having a grand dialogue. And that was pretty exciting because we're not face to face. We weren't able to see each other. So I wanted to kind of bring some sort of cohesion in a way, you know, that they were still able to talk, you know, and find similarities between each other, and also maybe disagree on some things, but be able to still have a decent conversation. So I appreciated that as well. And some students did, for the most part, really enjoyed it. But the feedback that I did receive, and I actually asked them, a few students that had really been vocal with me via email, I did ask them a few days ago, just sent out an email to a few of them. Do you have any positives about using Canvas for this time, or do you have any negatives? You know, just give me whatever you have. And what is interesting are 2 points that I'll bring out from students. One student stated that, and I'll read it actually verbatim. This student says, I absolutely love Canvas. It was so much easier to use than eCampus. The mobile app is also pretty great. I can access my grades and look at assignments from my phone. The notifications from Canvas are also the best compared to eCampus. So that was verbatim from one student. Now, and I want you to remember that notification part, because here's one other quote from another student. This student said, I personally feel that Canvas has potential to be a successful platform. I may have struggled with the transition from eCampus to Canvas just because that's what I'm used to, speaking of eCampus. My main concern is that I didn't receive email notifications that I thought I would. I only received email notifications for the discussion post. I understand everyone's situation is unique, but with work, it made my class experience very difficult to manage. And I had heard this throughout the semester from a few students. Some students were getting notifications without an issue. They were on top of things, and other students would say, I haven't heard anything in a week, when things were going out often. So, you know, I think there's some settings that need to happen between the students and their own platform there, whether they really, whether they receive information, notifications, and et cetera. And then from my end, I made it a point to every other day, especially if I would post an announcement or I knew something was coming up, I would send it out on the regular TAMU email, as opposed to sending it out through Canvas, because it seemed like some students hadn't adjusted their notification setting and et cetera.
So in Canvas, there's the notifications settings that you yourself set. And so those students had different defaults or something, it sounds like. Yeah. Kevin, I wonder, is there going to continue to be a Keep Learning site? And is there any way we could direct students toward helping them understand how to set up Canvas the way they want so that they're receiving the notifications they want?
Yes, so I know that we've been getting some questions about what's going to happen with our Keep Learning. I know that Jocelyn, Dr. Widmer said to us some time ago that there will be some changing to the Keep Learning, as that Keep Learning was first launched back after we launched Keep Teaching back in March when COVID just started. So we haven't just got a chance to, we're working step by step to actually getting feedback from faculty and staff of what they need and modify our resources based on those priorities. So, but yes, there will be some changing on Keep Learning to focus and talk about Canvas and how to use Canvas, because as of right now, you can, if you go to Keep Learning, a lot of the content is focused on eCampus. But yeah, that content will soon change.
My personal experience is that if you provide a lot of resources to students within your course about how to use eCampus, they come to you later to ask you more questions about eCampus, even when it's not about your course. And so that's why I thought it might be neat if the resources existed for students outside of our courses where we can reference them to it. And then that way they go to the right place to ask questions from that kind of thing. So thank you so much, Kevin. I'm glad you're here. So Nikki or David, do you have student experiences you'd like to tell us about?
I had a very small class this summer, so I didn't have a lot of feedback. The feedback that I got was that there was a bit of a learning curve, but it was pretty minor. It really wasn't a problem for them to get going and figure out what they needed to do. And I would say that the most feedback that I dealt with students was through the grading tool itself, because it was a very asynchronous course. Students would turn in drafts, and then I could use the speed grader to really rapidly give them feedback on a lot of different points and give them comments, and then they would turn it back in again, and we kind of had our conversations through that tool.
Excellent. And was there a steep learning curve for you on the grading tool itself? Speed grader?
The grading, no, actually, it was pretty intuitive. It works pretty much like the one in eCampus. I guess I had one issue with the grading tool that I never quite figured out, how to deal with, which is that because my students were turning in drafts, if you just go and look at the grade book, it's if I have a tentative grade put in for somebody on the first draft, you don't really see who's turned in another draft until you go into that student and look at it. So it was I was falling behind on that because I didn't know where I was supposed to go and who's turned in drafts. Because it was asynchronous, people were working on different modules at different times. Mm-hmm. So I probably would have to do something a little different, I think.
Cool. I want to take your class, David. Nikki, how about you, Nikki?
In general, mine is more straightforward, and so I didn't have really any issues other than me forgetting to publish something and the students saying, I can't see this. But other than that, it went pretty smoothly.
And how did the students, did you get a feel for how the students felt about it in
They
Canvas?
had no real issues. Literally, it's if I just forgot to publish. I had one student who really worked ahead of everybody else. And so I'd get polite little emails about, you don't have this in there, or you don't have that. And so I could fix it before anyone else was really affected.
That's cool. Okay, great. So next I'd like to, we've kind of started to touch on what worked and what didn't work and what we might, what was successful. So we had some questions around your perspectives on problems that you encountered or successes you had. So your biggest struggle, your biggest success, and what you might do differently in the future. And to the extent you haven't already mentioned that, maybe each of you could popcorn in.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in the beginning, again, we were all pretty new to this, during that first week or so of class, I had a number of students chime in and say things like they're going to a page and a lot of things are in Latin. And then I was receiving like, things are in Latin, you know, and I couldn't for the life of me try to figure out why. But there are some things that were opened up. Okay, so when you go into like your course page in Canvas, on the left-hand side, there are things like your syllabus, quizzes, different things that you're going to use for that class. You have the option as the instructor to turn off some of those functions. So if you're not going to utilize quizzes per se, which I did, but if you're not going to utilize it, you can turn that off so the student won't navigate to quizzes. And if you don't have something there, or if they navigate to discussions and you don't have something there, there are placeholders in there sometimes, and it's just a bunch of letters that make no sense, but it's placeholders for the instructor to put information in there. But I started receiving emails from students, you know, telling me about certain areas, and it has Latin and things, and these are areas I hadn't really even navigated myself. So then I went in there and realized, okay, that's really nothing for you. Let me turn off that function so when you go into Canvas, you won't even see, you know, modules or whatever that thing is. So that's one thing, to make sure that, and I think the last speaker, Allison Hall, I think she spoke about making the course page as clean as possible. So if you're only going to utilize announcements, quizzes, the grade book, and discussion, just have those things open, because there are maybe 10 or 12 or 15 or so different things that you could utilize in Canvas. But just make sure the ones that you want the students to navigate, that those are open to them, and everything else is closed until you get a feel for it or until you actually want to utilize it, because it can just start some quick confusion. And hey, that was one of the phone calls I had to the help desk, asking like, what are they talking about? Things are in Latin, what is this? And then they kind of helped me walk through closing that out so the students wouldn't see it.
So it sounds to me like maybe you started with your development course, which has a template in it. And when you transferred it over to your empty course, you brought a lot of stuff over that was in the template because you hadn't deleted it or you hadn't closed that out. And Kevin is acknowledging, this is how much I know about Canvas. That's about as far as my growing with Canvas has come. But I could see how that would easily happen. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, and David, how about you?
Well, I think, so I've talked a little bit about the struggle I had with the grade book. I mean, and I think what I would probably do from now on is kind of have every assignment have basically create two assignments, one being a draft that I interact with them, and then the second one actually recording the grade, so that it's coming in a different place and I can see it on the grade book. I think the other struggle that I had a little bit was because the course, I'm trying to set it up so that each student gets their own unique data set to start with, and then they work through, and then there are certain decision points where they get to decide, I'm going to go down this path, and so they're supposed to access certain modules. And I thought that was going to be really easy to do because it's a module-based LMS compared to eCampus. But it turns out that was not so easy to do. And I think it's mostly because things haven't been implemented yet. So I came up with a workaround, which was to basically create groups based on this decision point, and I had to manually put people into those groups as they made that decision. So I set up like a non-graded quiz or survey.
Mhm.
And then I'd have to keep track of that and then add them into the group that they needed to be in to access the files that they needed to access. So my goal is to ramp this course up to having like 150 students in it. So I'd really prefer that to kind of be more automatic.
So Kevin, will there be pathways eventually in our implementation of Canvas? Not to put you on the spot, but sounds like that's what David needs.
Yeah.
Yes. We currently are still learning more on from the faculty of what they want to be available in the Canvas implementation. So currently we do not have any words on whether that will be available in the fall, but it might be in the future.
Okay.
Thank you. Nikki, how about you?
My biggest issue,
struggle?
my biggest issue was actually the grade book, which was drastically improved compared to eCampus, but certain things it wouldn't do, particularly hide the grades, and some of it was my issue with correct settings. But for instance, I don't give back my final exam. I normally will sit there and discuss it with the students, but for a lab class, there's only so many questions you can ask. And one student took the final exam separately from everybody else with me watching him on Zoom. And he finished it and he said, "Oh, is that my grade?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? You can see that?" And I still don't know how to not have him see that. And initially with the quizzes, they could see their answer responses immediately, but that I found the setting for, because they don't all take it at once. And so I don't want them all to have the answers or have to have the answers. The grade book is still not total happiness with me.
Okay.
And yesterday I actually asked one of mine to Zoom with me, share their desktop, so I could literally see what they could see before I released final grades, because I didn't want them to see the final exam.
Okay.
I think that needs a little work. Then
So it
I
sounds
do
like
too.
maybe quizzes and the grade book
Yeah.
are sticking points for you at this point. Yeah.
Quizzes were a breeze. They were great. It's more when I reveal the answers that I don't feel I have enough control over.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there did seem to be a math difference in what Canvas did, and I have a ticket out on that now for the grade book, because I dropped the lowest quiz and I went back and manually checked some, and my math didn't work out with Canvas's math. And I noticed those columns disappeared from my grade book, so I think they're still investigating that.
I see. Okay, great. So I have a question about that, Kevin, as long as I've got you here. So in my classes, I let students in a period of time, within a week, take the quiz as often as they like. And then they just get to keep the highest score. So I'll be able to do that in Canvas?
Yes, you will be able to do that in Canvas.
And then how about the drop the lowest grade kind of situation? So if a student has a 0 because they didn't take it, does Canvas handle that better than eCampus did?
Yes, there is that feature in Canvas. So I will recommend. My colleague Isabel just did that training yesterday about finalizing grades, and she did explain how to drop the lowest score, because it's just click. It's just there's a feature in Canvas. There's no need for you to do the math. I guess the Canvas will do it for you. So I will recommend that you actually watch when we're going to do the trainings, and also come talk to us during the office hours, because the training some of the times just only show you there's the difference between just watching the how-to versus come to office hours, and also seeing the synchronous training. The difference, one of them is the best practices. So if you just watch our on-demand training, just to keep our video short, most of the time we only show you how to do this, how to do that. But Canvas is an LMS. There are so many different ways to do certain things, and come talk to us during office hours, or ask us during your questions during the training, after the training, and we'll show you the best practices on how to do certain things the right way.
Excellent. So word just came in to me that Keep Learning, which we talked about a few minutes ago, will in fact be relaunched next week. and that they're taking notes as we talk about things that ought to be on there. So that's exciting to know. So hopefully there'll be ways to teach students how to set their notifications and that sort of thing based on our conversation. So that's great. Okay, so next I'm wondering if each of you were to be talking to faculty that are going to use Canvas in the fall, which we're talking to over 100 of them now. What would you say to them, especially those who are trying to decide which LMS to use between eCampus and Canvas?
I have a strong preference for Canvas compared to eCampus. I think it has major improvements, especially SpeedGrader, which I'm madly in love with.
Yeah.
Being that there's some question as to how much will be online in the fall if the university closes, I know in our department, certain groups of people who teach the same class have been encouraged to stay with eCampus so that if one got sick, somebody else could take over from them without having to learn a new learning system too. But I am wholeheartedly in favor of Canvas.
Yeah, so there are important considerations to make based on the arrangements you're making for a fluid semester this fall. For sure, for sure. How about you, Deirdre?
I am totally on board with Canvas right now. Again, if given any recommendation to faculty, you know, since the plan is to transition into this fully in about a year, I believe that it's really important that we try to jump on this and kind of get a feel for it as soon as possible. And that was one of my motivations to begin during this summer 2 session with a small class, and we could kind of navigate our learning curve through this together. But also not to be afraid and be okay and be a little patient with yourself. That was actually an email that I sent out to students a week before the summer 2 began, to be patient with themselves and with me as well. And we're going to navigate this together. So know that we all have to start somewhere. So if you want to start with Canvas, know that you won't master it. You probably won't master it in a year with everything that it has to offer. But we have to start somewhere. So I appreciated being able to kind of jump on board this summer too.
Excellent. How about you, David?
Well, I'm going to teach the same course in the fall, so I'm ready to go. I mean, I feel like now at least I've got everything in there, and now I can kind of refine it. Yeah. But within our department, we're advising people who have existing courses in eCampus to maybe stick with that for this fall, and then people who are maybe sort of relying on an LMS for the first time really heavily because they're teaching remotely, for them to go straight into Canvas. And that way we're kind of, we're limiting the number of people who are going to have questions right off the bat, and we can kind of focus more on helping through the people who really need to kind of get online with teaching for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is an excellent example of one of those it depends questions, right? So if you already are in eCampus, you might want to, stay where you are unless you're just eager to get involved in the Canvas and to use some of the things you've heard about here. But if you're just someone who needs an LMS because you never used one, it seems to me, and we've been talking about this in my own department, it makes perfect sense to engage in Canvas since eCampus goes away next August. So why put all the effort into learning a learning management system, getting the materials in there, and then not having it after August? So as long as you're going to put that effort in there. Also, we should all be keeping in mind the student point of view with respect to this, right? So at some point, we want to start coordinating the classes in our departments and the curriculum that students are consuming so that we move as quickly as possible toward them all using the same learning management system. A learning management system is strongest when the student can open their calendar and see all of their assignments, not just the assignments for one course that happens to be there, right? That's how we really add to the student experience. We increase student success is because they're able to keep track of what's going on in their life in one space. So I think, it's a great question for this semester while we're in this fluid circumstance, and people who didn't used to do any sort of online teaching have to find a tool to do it. Again, the recommendation I think would be Canvas then, if you are not already in a learning management system. But if you feel like the learning curve is high and maybe you want to do the Growing with Canvas course and get your feet under you before you implement your course, then you could stay in eCampus and do that self-paced learning and then take up Canvas either in the spring or the next fall. So, and I really want to just punch what Deirdre said as a best practice. Managing expectations is super important when you're teaching hybrid or online or face-to-face even, right? That's classroom management, is managing expectations. So we need to say to students, hey, this is new to me too. We need to, in this COVID time, we need to have empathy with students. We need to assume everybody's coming from a place of trying, right? And then move from there, right? And so we should ask the same of our students in this. You know, I'm doing my best. We're gonna get in a groove here soon, but you know, let's all have some vulnerability and some kindness towards each other with respect to this kind of thing. And all of that showed up in the first two talks of a Big Splash, right? So I'm just trying to echo that in the context of taking this on as new faculty. Next, I wonder. We're touching on things, so I'm trying to edit the questions as we go. So are there things within that you are looking to grow into or expand into that you haven't already kind of touched on here? Are there things you're looking forward to, hoping that there are? Maybe this is your chance to make sure Kevin knows what you want on the list for the next things to get implemented. Do you have that kind of feedback for us on that, based on your experience?
Well, so are you kind of asking what would we like to utilize going forth?
Yeah, or next time. Yeah, what would you do different? What would you add? You know, what's the addition you're going to do?
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to play with next week is utilizing the rubric. That's one thing that I didn't focus on, but I really want to use that to kind of ease some of the load and the pressure of grading everything that I would have, but to really set that up. And I don't know if that's really spelled out within the training and support, if they have a PowerPoint for that or a video for that, but that's one thing that I really want to investigate over the next week before the class begins, to see if I can possibly use that, because one of the classes that I'm teaching for the fall is the same class that I taught for this summer too. So the basic structure for it is already set up, but now I'm just trying to see what additional things I would like to implement, and utilizing a rubric is for some of the assignments is one of the things that I need to investigate and learn about.
Excellent. How about you two?
Well, as I said, the nature of my course, I'm really looking forward to the pathways. So I hope that comes in soon. That's kind of that would be a big time saver for me. The other thing that I do intend to put in the fall, which I just ran out of time to try to figure out, was quizzes. I mean, I figured it out, but I just decided I don't have time to actually write all the quizzes and implement them. So that's the next thing that I probably will be implementing going forward.
Excellent. How about you, Nikki?
I actually am wanting to get more of a discussion type thing for problems. I have actually considered using a GroupMe. The communication tools within Canvas, I think you must need that app to do it. It sends you the email, then you have to log back into Canvas to reply to that email, because I did not download the app, and I presume in the app I wouldn't have to do that. So the students often ask the same questions that you receive these emails saying, we're trying to figure this out, and it's like, I feel bad for the students who aren't in the group, who are trying to do it all alone. So I want to open the communication channels better for that. I did use the rubrics in SpeedGrader, and I found the rubrics for Deirdre made it so much more uniform, in part because I'm grading through TAs also, not just me. but I could step by step through problems. I want the point breakdown like this. If I have this answer, and the TAs could just click and put the comment in, and I asked them to keep track, and they said it probably cut the grading time in half by doing the rubrics.
Excellent.
So that was a big advantage, but I need to work on the communication to solve their problems, even though we had a lot of office hour time.
Yeah. Well, so historically in my class, which has been an in-campus, I've instituted a discussion board that's about frequently asked questions, effectively, questions that come up for you. And then, so one of two things will happen. They'll go ahead and email me anyway. And if it's a generic enough question, I'll say, here's your answer, but I'm also posting this to the discussion board with de-identifying you. And then that way I know I've given the answer out to all group. I got this question, here's what it is. But then I really implore them throughout the semester to just ask me directly in the chat, in that discussion section, because that way they know the question's already been answered, and I've committed to answering it within 24 hours. That's what I tell them I'll do, and that way I don't have to read 6 emails about it before I put, or recognize that it's the same one over and over. And some of them might have asked it a little differently, and one answer would be better to a well-worded question, right? And so I think that's a great best practice there. So it's a good idea. Hi, Jocelyn. So I had a question for Kevin. So Kevin, what do you foresee as, I lost it. I'm sorry. So what do you foresee doing with faculty this coming fall that isn't already there? I know there's a lot of empty boxes, not a lot. It's filling in very quickly. Oh, that was actually it. I asked you part of that question. Let me ask this question. Can you talk about the resources that are there? Because we're talking about them as if when you click on them, they're all videos, the training that's there. But I think it's kind of important that people recognize that some people who want to read about it and that kind of thing, there's other resources there as well on the trainings and support page. Could you mention what's there for people?
Yeah, so if you go to the lms.tamu.edu website, our lms.tamu.edu website, in the training and support, those are most of our trainings resources or resources that we have currently there. So do keep in mind that we are still providing support for both Canvas and eCampus. So if you still plan to stick to eCampus in the fall or in the spring too, you're not ready to move to Canvas yet, we still support those, and you can still see our on-demand videos on how to do certain things in eCampus. And we also have an AI docs where you can find the step-by-step. If you don't want to listen to the video, you can just read how to do certain things in the LMS. But yeah, we also making changes weekly on based on the feedback of the faculty and what we learn about Canvas. We're like I said, we're growing together with Canvas. We're making changes weekly on our training opportunities. So we recommend that you watch our training opportunities, see our website, access our website weekly, and also. We're changing the times for our office hours. So for example, we know that fall faculties already started coming back to campus and building their courses, maybe in both Canvas and eCampus. So we are providing more office hours for next week just to handle the load of those faculty coming in and was not able to get a chance to see our synchronous training in the past.
I have one question I know is popular, so I'm going to put it out there, and it's also personal. So when will media site be available via Canvas? Do we have a sense of when that'll be, so that you can post? As of now, if you go to the library and you ask for videos that you'd like posted, which used to be on Media Matrix, they say you need an eCampus course in order to sign up. So I'm wondering what that means with respect to those of us who'd like to adopt Canvas, when we would be able to have access to videos there.
Sure, I'll go ahead and answer that one. That's a project being managed by Provost IT, and I know they're working on communication probably as we speak. So that's not something that Kevin and I could answer, but we will certainly be part of the testing and the integration and the training as that becomes available. So hopefully it's imminent, and as soon as there is something to communicate, that will come out. All right, well, we will wrap things up if that's okay, Heather. I know you probably could go on all day. You've got a fantastic lineup of questions for these faculty. So appreciative of this perspective that y'all have provided. And to Kevin, as you've been able to buttress this feedback, and then of course to Heather, as you turn to Canvas in the fall and kind of thinking about what this looks like given your robust experience in eCampus. So this was a fantastic panel. Thank you for your time. We also want to make sure we thank our partners for the event, the Center for Teaching Excellence, Disability Resources, Provost Communications, Provost IT Office, TTVN for the live stream, as well as Canvas and LinkedIn Learning. And then a special thanks to our LMS Advisory Committee members, who many of them are moderators today, including Heather is one of those. We'll be sending out a survey in one of our recap emails in the next couple of days, and we'd love your feedback, particularly to Heather's question that she asked a few times. We're trying to constantly reinvent our training lineup and our modalities as well. So that feedback will help us do that. And with that, we will give you a few minutes to transition to our next session that will talk about productivity during challenging times with our guest speaker. So encourage you to attend, and thank you again.
Bonnie's awesome. Make sure you go.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.